Welcome to Explore the Power of Places with Aileen and Matthias.
Hi everyone, I'm Aileen and I'm an engineer on the Places data team in New York.
My name is Matthias and I work in partnerships in Menlo Park. Today, we are launching a new set of APIs and SDK methods that provide access to Facebook's rich Places data. During this session, we will explore how Places data can help you build location-aware experiences for people and talk about how our new product makes that easy. We'll then go through some partner examples and show you how our SDK works on iOS and Android. But before we talk about the product, let's take a step back. Mobile has been a massive shift in how we interact with the world. From the way we use apps to communicate with friends and family to how we engage with businesses around us. Our phones are with us at all times, and they have changed the way we do things at home, but even more so when we're out and about. 3 out of 4 people who use the internet globally do so through a mobile device. A lot of people use their phone as their primary device to get online, some even as their only device. There are over 2 billion smartphone users in the world today. And in the US, for example, adults are estimated to spend over 3 hours per day on mobile. People expect their smartphone and where they are to inform their location. Sometimes we want to find interesting places nearby or somewhere new we'd like to go visit. We may also want to share where we are with our friends or add a place to a piece of content before posting it online. And sometimes we just want to get insights to make the most of our current location. From a developer's perspective, this translates into being able to search for places and show them to people, and also being able to identify what specific place a person is at. Now, if you've tried creating mobile experiences that are location aware, you know that it isn't always an easy task. The information we get from mobile devices has become richer, but it isn't always usable as is. Collecting the various signals you need and making sense of them to translate them into something that makes sense to people is difficult, especially if it's not the core problem you're trying to solve. As a developer, you try to make sense of the latitude and longitude and other location signals you can get and translate them to be able to show meaningful context to people, things that make sense to them. Being able to turn raw device data into real-world context can be really powerful. In order to provide this context, you also need to have a database of places. This database can include things like the places' names, of course, but also what these places look like, where they're located exactly, and even information about people who've been there. All of this can make the content you surface to people more meaningful to them, which improves their experience with your product. And this is one side of the problem. It's even more challenging if you're trying to identify the specific place a person is at, for example, to give them a more tailored experience based on where they are. This is especially true in a dense urban area where there can be dozens of places that are very close to each other, sometimes even stacked on top of each other in the same building. When we build apps that rely on location services, we tend to overestimate how useful proximity is on its own. It really doesn't help that the GPS signals we get from mobile devices aren't always very precise. The margin of error that is typically represented by a radius like this one can encompass several places. In this situation, the notion of proximity becomes blurrier, since now the person could be anywhere within an area that is pretty wide. And this is why we need a different approach. An approach that takes into account additional inputs, such as the accuracy of the GPS, of course, but also Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signatures nearby. By combining those signals, you can try to identify the specific place a person is at with a certain level of confidence and show them a more relevant experience as a result.
We've been working hard on the problems that Matthias just described because we face those same challenges when building our own products. Now we're ready to share our solutions with you to help you build location-aware experiences for people. Today, we're excited to introduce Places Graph. It's a set of APIs and SDK methods that provide access to Facebook's rich places data. It helps you take those location signals that you get from a mobile device and turn them into more contextual information about places nearby. Places Graph is easy to integrate. It comes with the newest version of Facebook SDK for iOS and Android, which many of you are already familiar with. I'll show you some examples of how to use our SDKs later. Places Graph is built for growth. It does not require server resources and will scale with your user base. And lastly, Places Graph is entirely free to use. Our data set includes over 140 million places from all around the world. We source these places from Facebook users, business owners who create Facebook pages, and data exchange partners. This means our data set is constantly growing and kept up to date. We have extensive coverage globally, for example, in North America and in countries like Brazil, Indonesia, and the UK. We are always working to further expand our coverage internationally. Our 140 million places fall into a wide variety of categories, which lets us support a diverse set of use cases. We have businesses like restaurants, retail stores, and theaters, and public places like parks and landmarks. For each place, we provide basic information like its name and category, content like photos, location information like its address, and since we're Facebook, of course, we also provide social information like the number of people who have liked and who have checked into the place. If you integrate Facebook Login, you can even show people their friends who have previously visited. That's just a sampling of some of the fields that we provide, but there's a wealth of other information. We've been building great experiences on this proven data set for years within our own family of apps. Our API already serves billions of requests per month. Facebook recently launched a recommendations feature that improves the experience of asking your friends for advice. Let's say you're planning a trip to Mumbai. You can ask your friends for recommendations on places to go, and this feature will organize all their suggestions and make it really easy to see them on a map or in a list. Messenger uses the same data set to let people share their location and make it easier to meet up with friends. Instagram uses Places Graph to let people geotag their photos, and recently also added this feature to Stories. Each month, over 1 billion people interact with places on Facebook. These interactions include recommendations, search, and check-in. We have ongoing efforts to improve our places data, and we hope that we can speed up this process by exposing it to more people and to more use cases outside of Facebook. That's why we're opening it up to all of you. Now, let's talk about what functionalities are included in Places Graph. There are 3 different ways that you can access our data. First, you can search for places to enable use cases like location tagging and place discovery. A search can be performed using a name, location, and category, and for each request, we return up to 100 places based on the parameters that you specified. We can also help you determine which place a person is currently at, given location signals, so that you can provide a more contextually relevant experience. A short list of places, along with the confidence that the person is actually there, is returned. And if you already know of a place on Facebook, you can query our API for additional information about that place, including all the fields that we previously showed you. Places Graph is built on Graph API, so it works the same way as all the other Graph API endpoints. We also provide iOS and Android SDKs to make it really easy to integrate on mobile. Finally, Facebook Login is not required, so you can query Places Graph without a user access token. But if you do integrate Facebook Login, that can increase your query limits and help you provide a more personalized experience for people. We'll now tell you about our partners and show you some examples of what they've built.
Here are some of the partners that helped us build Places Graph. We're really thankful for all the feedback they gave us in the past months as we were building out the product. These companies build mobile apps, websites, and bots for messengers. And their integrations help people find great places to go to via recommendation systems and friends, get a better sense of what's nearby, share richer content online, and help people make the most of their current location. Our partners are from all over the world. They build location-aware experiences for people here in the US, in India, Brazil, France, South Korea, Nigeria, and more. So now we'll talk about a couple of them in a bit more detail, starting with Nike. Nike Plus Run Club is Nike's running app, and they use Places Graph to allow people to add location context to their runs before posting them. When you run with Nike's app, your phone's GPS traces your route and shows it to you on a map, and Nike also shows you more information about how you're doing, things like your pace, your speed, or your splits, for example. Once you've completed your run, you can decide to share it with your running buddies on Nike and even post it to other services like Facebook or Instagram. A couple of months ago, I joked with some people on our team that I was going to try to show my dog at F8. So here we are today at F8, and this is my dog. Her name is Nikki, and I had to try to get her into running to put her there, which was not very easy. She doesn't really like it very much. Joke aside, on this screen, you can add a photo you took during your run, like I did, and tag where you ran by tapping on one of the suggestions at the bottom. If the place you want to tag isn't suggested to you, you can also tap the location icon and search for another place before saving your workout. Aileen is now going to show you how to build a similar experience using the Places search functionality in our iOS SDK.
The first step of using our iOS SDK is to define a Places Manager property. It includes methods for making all of our Graph API requests. Use this property to make a search request to fetch nearby places. Here, we're using a Places Manager method that lets you explicitly set the location. This is useful, for example, if you want to use a location where the person finished their run or where they took the photo. But if you just want to grab the current location from the device, the iOS SDK also provides another search method that does not take location as a parameter and will automatically set the location for you. If the person has started typing the name of a place, set the search term. Otherwise, leave it as nil to fetch all nearby places. Just make sure that either search term or location is set because you need at least one of them to perform a search. Next, specify the fields that you want for each place. Here, Nike is displaying the name of the place as well as the distance. You can use the location field to get the latitude and the longitude of the place in order to calculate distance. Finally, you can start the request with a completion handler that parses the JSON object in the response. Let's see what that looks like now. The data field contains a list of place search results. In this example, we requested the name and the location, so every place will have both of these fields. The paging field provides parameters that are used for pagination. You can use the after cursor to get the next page of results. And that's all you need to do to enable Places search in your application using our iOS SDK. Let's switch gears now and talk about a second partner.
This is Samsung's brand new flagship device, the Galaxy S8. And here's what they're building with Places Graph. Samsung is building an experience that will show people cards relevant to where they are without the need to launch a new app. By swiping from the home screen, you can access Bixby Home, the home feed of Samsung's new AI assistant. You'll then see a card powered by Places Graph that will show you more information about the place you're currently at. That card includes photos, the rating of the place, and even a way to quickly check in on Facebook if you want to let your friends know that you're there. Let's now dive into the Android SDK to show you how this works.
In order to create this place card using our Android SDK, you need to make a current place request. Start by initializing a request parameter builder. Then use a param builder to set the fields that you want to request. Here, we're showing the name, profile photo, cover photo, rating information, and category. you need to create a callback object, which will be invoked when the request is ready and when the response is received. I'll show you how to define this class in a second. Then send a current place request using the parameter builder and the callback object. Let's take a look at that callback class now, which contains 3 callback functions. OnRequestReady runs when the request is ready to be sent, and you can use it to customize your request before execution. OnCompleted is invoked when the response is received. Here, you should parse the JSON object contained within the result parameter to extract the information that you need to render the card. Notice that you, as a developer, didn't need to pull any location signals, format them, and set them as request parameters, because the SDK does this for you. You just need to make sure that your app has location permissions from the user. If the SDK fails to retrieve the location, onLocation error will be invoked. If, for example, the person did not turn on location services, you can handle this here by prompting them to do so. Samsung also added a check-in button to make it really easy for people to check in on Facebook directly from this Places card. If you want to implement this as well, you can use Share Dialog, which is included in the Facebook SDK. Like the Places search response, the current place response is also a JSON object with a list of places represented by the fields that were requested. One additional piece of information that we return with each place in this response is our confidence that the person is actually there. The confidence level can be low, medium, or high. And that's how you can determine someone's current place using our Android SDK.
With Nike and Samsung, we've covered some of what you can build with Places Graph. We've showed you how to search for places and geotag content on iOS, and identify what place a person is currently at on Android. There's a lot more data you can leverage to build location-aware experiences, including opening hours, phone numbers, social context, and more. In this third example, Aileen will show you how to build a place screen like the one you see behind us, which can include much more information about a single place.
Here's how to call the place information endpoint using the Android SDK. We'll also take a deeper dive into how to request fields. Again, start with initializing a request parameter builder. Then use a parameter builder to set the place ID and the fields that you want to fetch. Both the iOS and Android SDKs define a set of available fields as string constants, and you can use them to fetch things like name, category, and cover photo. You can also define your own strings for new fields that are added after the current version of the Facebook SDK, or for more complex field requests. Here, we can fetch the photos that the restaurant uploaded onto their page by setting the type parameter on the photos edge to uploaded. Then for each photo node, you can request the images field to get the image URLs. If you have a user access token from Facebook Login, you can also use the context field to get the profile photos of friends who previously checked in. Next, use Place Manager to create a new place information graph request. Finally, define a onCompleted callback function to parse the JSON response and execute the request. We just showed you how to call the 3 main Places Graph endpoints using either our iOS or Android SDK. All these functionalities are available in both SDKs, along with some other features that we didn't cover. Now let's wrap up and tell you how to get started.
Thanks, Aileen, for demonstrating how to use our SDKs. These are a few examples of things you can do with Places Graph. All the functionalities we covered during this session are available today to all of you. If there are 3 things we want you to take away from this session, it's that Places Graph is easy to integrate. We built it in a way that is favorable to growth and scales easily, and it's completely free. When we say easy to integrate because it's built on top of Graph API, already familiar to all of you who have built products with developer tools from Facebook in the past. Places Graph is included in the Facebook SDK for iOS and Android, so you don't need to worry about pulling and formatting location signals from the device. It also makes it easy to properly construct the requests, including getting the required access tokens. And we've even built sample apps for both iOS and Android that demonstrate how to use each of the 3 endpoints with code that you are welcome to reuse if you like. Places Graph is built for growth. Everything can be implemented client-side with our SDKs, so you don't have to worry about setting up servers to support your users' requests. Additionally, it makes it easy to scale by adapting to the size of your user base rather than having a fixed number of queries. And on top of all of that, whether you're just getting started or already operate at scale, Places Graph is completely free. To get started, visit fb.me/places or come talk to us at the Dev Garage. We'll be at the Graph API booth this afternoon and tomorrow. This was Places Graph. We're glad you're here at F8 with us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.